What's up, you filthy fight fans? Hopefully you guys got to catch the fights this weekend. If not, I got that recap. But before we get to that, let's get through this housekeeping and get on to that fight talk. Now, with that being said, if this is your first time, guys, go ahead and click that subscribe button. And also, do me a favor, smash that like button so we can beat this YouTube algorithm to get the filthy report out there. Now, with that, let's get to this fight talk. Now, guys, it was an amazing weekend of fights. Some fights really had me feeling like at a low, and then some fights were just completely amazing. Now, first off, we're going to jump into that Michael Johnson versus Clay Guida fight. Now, that did not go any way that I thought it was going to go. Not really sure what happened there, but it did seem like Michael Johnson came there to fight, but he just couldn't get the output that he needed to get against Clay Guida to back Clay Guida off. Clay Guida completely just pressured Michael Johnson continuously throughout the whole fight as he was mixing in his wrestling with different takedowns, pushing the pace, and taking some huge shots and just never backing off, always stepping forward, showing that he's a tough, gritty fighter still, and you can't really count him out. Even at 39, he's just looking like a phenomenal fighter. Now, is Guida on that title run? I don't know. It's kind of deep in 155. It's going to be kind of hard for him to get up there. I feel like he's, I don't know, fighting for legacy or maybe just fighting for money. I'm not really sure how his affairs are handled or if he's set up for his exit out of the fight game. But he did sign a new contract and he has a new 4-fight contract deal to go with it. Can't wait to see. Let's see if he can bounce into the top 10 and maybe go for that last title shot challenge. If not, he's been a hell of a fighter and he's still a tough, gritty fighter. And there's still a lot of fights out there for him to go through that he can match up with a lot in the 155 division. All right, guys, with that being said, we got to get to this co-main event. And this co-main event, I would have to say it's really hard to swallow it. It was a really good fight, and I'm not going to knock it at all. I got to give it up to Cory Sandhagen. But first off, before we even step to Cory Sandhagen, I got to talk about Frankie. And there's been a lot of mixed emotions with different people. People are saying that they don't think Frankie should retire. I'm kind of on the other side. I feel like, what is he fighting for? Like, Frankie has been a champion. He's fought in 3 different divisions. He's been one of the top at the sport. But over the last couple of fights, he's had some really, really devastating knockouts. And in this fight, it really showed that his speed is really starting to slow down. He's not having the reaction times as quickly as he does usually anymore. His footwork still looks great. It just, I don't know. It seemed like a lot for him to take on. And of course, I mean, it's hard to fight somebody like Cory Sandhagen. He literally is, I don't even think he's 5'11". I really actually think he's like 6 foot, 6'1", and he's fighting in the 135-pound division. He's 28. He has speed, timing, power. He uses his length very well in this division, and he's just able to throw. And as you guys saw, he kind of just had Frankie's ticket there. He timed him perfectly. He set him up perfectly. He set up a trap to pull Frankie in and was able to throw that knee and put him out. There's not much to say about this fight because it was only 28 seconds. But the one thing I want before we even extremely acknowledge about Cory Sandhagen, I have to talk to you guys about his post-fight. And I give Cory a lot of props on this, and I have to admit he did a really great job because when he was even watching the playback, he didn't even want to watch the playback. He was upset. He was like, man, he didn't want to see Frankie go out like that, and that's not what he wanted to do to Frankie. And it was either him or Frankie, and of course he's going to choose himself over every single time. But he acknowledged that Frankie's a legend of the sport, and he hated that he had to do that to him. You guys could see that he was emotionally distraught with it. Of course, his adrenaline and everything took over him in the fight. And of course, right after that fight, you guys heard him. He's coming for that belt, and he is a devastating powerhouse coming for that belt. I feel like his game has completely evolved since he fought Aljamain Sterling last time. And he's not overlooking Aljamain Sterling. He's not overlooking Peter Yan or anybody, but he is speaking the truth when it comes to him, and he's talking about that he deserves the next title shot after Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling. Now, with Frankie, getting back to Frankie, to me, I feel like he should retire. But like always, you can't just jump the gun, just like even they say with fighters at the end of the fight, after a fight. You can't just be emotional and jump. Of course, with me, I have an emotional tie sort of to Frankie because I've watched him grow through the sport. I watched him to become a dominant champion. I watched him become a tough, gritty fighter. But it does seem like his chin starting to wear off and his speed starting to wear off. Where do we go from here? We'll see how it goes, because I don't really feel like he's going to have a chance to chase for that title shot anymore. There are a couple of fights that I would love to see him in. I would love to see him against TJ Dillashaw. I would love to see him against Dominic Cruz. There's tons of matches in this division that would work out really good for him. But once again, let's see where he falls to in the rankings. If he falls out of the top 10 or he falls like at the top at the number 10 spot, I'd rather see Frankie go off and ride off in the sunset. I know he has financial stability. He has his life set up for him for when he exits from fighting, with a couple of gyms and a couple of different sponsorships. And also, if you guys don't remember, Frankie has done the desk before. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to get him in on the desk again. Let's get into this main event, which is going to be Untitled Overeem versus Alexander Volkov. Now, I'm going to say the same sentiment that I'm saying about Frankie with this fight. I understand Overeem is getting older in age, but he's been knocked out severely, continuously the last couple of times. He was bouncing back on a win streak, and I get that. But it seems that every time he creeps into that top echelon of the division, that he just isn't able to get across that hump. And I believe it's just because of his style changing, because he wasn't seeming like that aggressor striker anymore. He is using a lot more wrestling and using a wrestling base to basically win his fights. He's either taking them to decisions or he's trying to ground and pound you out. He ran into trouble when he wasn't able to get Volkov down, which is actually an amazing too, because Alexander Volkov wasn't that big on wrestling. He is a really true, like a kickboxing phenom, and he's a striker. He has really, really good crisp striking, but he was also showing off his takedown defense in this whole fight. Overeem wasn't able to get him down. He was just getting battered. He was creating angles every single time he could, able to hit Overeem with knees, punches, and kicks, basically, and just busting Overeem open and taking him out in the second round. Now, at this point, I do think that Overeem's going to retire. I don't know if he's going to try to go out on a win. It would be nice for him to go out on a win, just like the same thing with Frankie. It would be nice for him to go out on a win. But at this point, if you're not going for a title shot, then what are you fighting for? You've earned every single title in every other organization. You've been a dominant force at the top of the ranks for a while now. There's nothing really out there. You made a ton of money. You have other resources for your financial income for after you exit out the fight game. I just don't feel like Overeem needs to really prove anything anymore, and it's gonna be really hard for him to even get back to trying to get a title shot at this point. Now, with Alexander Volkov, that's a totally different story. He's looking like a devastating force. He looks like he's back on the right path. Let's see who they give him next. And don't discredit him for anything, because he's making a lot of people pay attention to him now. Even Francis Ngannou answered him and basically saying, like, hey, it looks like you're playing with the big boys, but understand it's a slippery slope when you get up to the top. So let's see how he does. Let's see if he can get it back. I wouldn't be amazed if they try to run it back with him and Derek Lewis. I think Derek Lewis is he's on a fight card coming up. I would have to check for it. I'll get you guys back on that one on next in a little bit. Maybe I'll have something in the news for him about that. But let's see how it goes. I think that Alexander Volkov actually predicts a huge problem for the heavyweight division just because of his size and his length and the way he's able to throw. All right, guys, now let's get to this UFC 258 breakdown of Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Now, before we jump even into that main card fight, there's a couple of fights I want to talk to you guys about, but I also want to give you guys some honorable mentions that are going to be on this fight card. They're telling you guys that it's a sneaky fight card that's going to have some bangers and maybe some fight of the year candidates, like Pedro Munoz versus Jimmy Rivera. You also have Kevin Gaslin versus Ian Hines. Now, those are two banger fights that you're not going to want to miss. Now, with that being said, the first fight I want to jump into is going to be this Bobby Green versus Jim Miller fight. Now, guys, this is a kind of like a vet fight at the top of the prelim card that you're not going to want to miss. Remember, Bobby Green was just on a tear in 2020 and then ended up at the end of the year having a hiccup where he was knocked off of his win streak, and he's trying to get right back up there, and he's trying to get into that top 10 to see if he can go for title contention. We all understand the 155 division is stacked. Now, Jim Miller is one of those fighters that's been around for the longest, and you can never count him out. Jiu-jitsu is good, hands are good, and always is trying to push the pace to get you to the floor so he can either submit you or ground and pound you out of there. Now, with Bobby's just a tough, gritty, nasty fighter, stays in your face, talks shit to you throughout the whole fight, telling you that he's going to just break you and try to bring it to you. He's been mixing it really well recently. His boxing's looking great, his kicks are looking great, and his wrestling's looking phenomenal. Now, who am I going to take in this fight? I'm probably going to have to lean with Bobby Green as long as he can keep the fight on the feet. If he can be able to bang with Jim Miller, I feel like he can get him out of there, and I can also see him getting him out of there in the second round. But like I said, you can't count on Jim Miller. He's sneaky with his submissions. He can fight off his back, and he has a top control like none other. So with that, of course, like I said, I'm going with Bobby. Now let's jump in this co-main event, which is one not to miss, which is going to be a women's flyweight match between Macy, Barber, and Alexa Grasso. Now, Alexa Grasso is coming back off of injury and sitting out for a little bit as she is trying to fine-tune her game and get ready for Macy Barber. Now, this is a tough test for her to bounce back to and try to get into that win column because Macy Barber is not one you want to take lightly. She's a tough, gritty fighter that likes to push the pace and put you up against the fence. And if she can't get you up against the fence, she'll try to take you down and put her fist right into your face to get that TKO win. Now, Alexa Grasso is a nice, tough fighter that likes to mix in her striking and her ground game together, but I don't see her trying to take it to the floor because Macy Barber is one of those people that has a really good top game control with her wrestling, and she usually is hard to hold down. So with that, I'm pretty much going to be going with Macy Barber. I think she's going to get it done probably maybe in the first round with the TKO win, pushing her up against the fence and just putting her out of her misery with a couple of punches. So we'll see how it goes from there. All right, guys, and with that, we're jumping into this main event, which is going to be Carmaro Usman versus Gilbert Burns for the welterweight title. Now, I'm so happy with this fight, and I'm so happy that it's getting done early in the year because it means that the welterweight division is starting to move, and we're starting to see what's going to happen through the welterweight division, who's going to be next for that title shot. And this is a really tough challenge for the champion, which is going to be Kamaru Usman. And the reason of that being is because it tests him mentally and physically. The reason I say it that way is because these guys used to be training partners. And I'm not just saying casual training partners where they trained here and there together. No, these guys hung out together, cornered each other, went through sweat, blood, and tears together for a very long time. They've been together since the Black Zillions all the way to Stanford MMA. With that, when the title shot got set up for Gilbert Burns, Kamaru decided to leave Stanford MMA and head out to Colorado to go train with Trevor Whitman. Now, this is a great matchup because they both hold some really good striking and they both have a really good ground game. One being with Kamaru having a phenomenal wrestling game because he's been at the elite wrestling at the top of his wrestling accolades. Going all the way to trying to get onto the Olympic team for the U.S. team for the wrestling team. Now with Gilbert Burns, he's a phenomenal jiu-jitsu player. He's won tons of matches in jiu-jitsu. He's a phenomenal, I think, 4th degree black belt and has some heavy hands, some crisp boxing, and showing you that he's not just a jiu-jitsu fighter that you need to worry about. He has a really good top game. Now, how do I see this match playing out? Is It's going to be a difficult one because I don't think Kamaru is going to want to go to the floor with him. I think he's going to want to try to keep it on the feet, but he's going to have to basically use his footwork to slip past those heavy-handed punches. Now, Kamaru seems like he can probably beat Gilbert with volume and then being able to give him that one shot that's going to literally put him out. But with that being said, if I see it ending early, I could say that I would probably give it to Gilbert because Gilbert is able to just knock you out with either hand with one shot. He carries that heavy-handed throughout all the rounds. He has gone unanimous decisions. I haven't really seen him go a 5-round fight, but we'll see if he's going to be tested here. Now, word on the street from different people is that it was a back and forth. Some good days, Gilbert would get Carmaro in the gym, and some other days, Carmaro would get Gilbert in the gym. We're not going to see, but we are going to find out on Saturday night who is the toughest welterweight and who is the baddest welterweight in the division right now, and who's going to be holding on to that belt. Now, with me, I'm kind of leading with Carmaro right now. I would like to see what it looks like with the interviews, especially because this is going to be the first time in a while, since pretty much a year, that they're doing in-person interviews. So let's see how it goes. It's been a while since they had to do any of the weight cutting. They've been planning for this fight since at the beginning of the pandemic. This was supposed to be the first pay-per-view for the Fight Island. Now, we'll see how it plays out. But like I said, I'm going with Kamaru. And with that being said, guys, I only got a little bit of fight news for you guys. There's been a couple of fight announcements, and there's been a couple of talks about some other things going on that I want to ask you guys about. So with that, let's get to this fight news, which is going to be, first off, I have to talk about the Cory Sandhagen thing, which is there's been a lot of people saying that people are wondering who's next for the title shot. There's no other name that should be thrown out there. The next title shot should be Cory Sandhagen after the Peter Yan Aljamain Sterling fight. And Peter Yan needs to quit dodging Cory Sandhagen. He's a tough, gritty fighter that deserves it. He's earned his title shot. So I don't feel like Sandhagen should have to fight anybody else. He should sit out and just wait for the next title shot. With that being said, I also feel that what Cory said is completely true. If TJ Dillashaw comes back and gets a fight and skips over all these other guys, I feel like that's straight freaking garbage and a complete disrespect to the division of the 135 bantamweight division of the UFC. Reason being is I understand TJ left the division being the champion, but don't forget, guys, he left the division being the champion because he was on a suspension for using a banned substance. So giving him a title shot coming back would be like rewarding him for using a banned substance. So get that garbage out of here. Cory Sandhagen all the way. I'm riding with Cory Sandhagen until the end of time. He is a phenomenal fighter. Mad props out to him. Now, with that, the next fight that has also been announced right now that we need to be talking about would have to be the Donald Celeroni versus Diego Sanchez. Now, the UFC is doing no favors to Diego Sanchez because they're basically saying, oh, you want it to be your farewell fight? For sure. Here's your farewell fight. Cowboy Cerrone. Now, these are two guys that used to be close teammates and friends, but because of the things that happened at Jackson and Wink, if you guys don't know, back in the day, Jackson and Wink had a split with Cerrone that went really nasty. It was back with Mike Perry, and Diego started talking mess about Cerrone, and Cerrone has never fired back, but now he's ready to fire back and said he's going to do it with his fist. Can't wait to see how that fight plays out. Already just giving you guys an early prediction, I feel like Cerrone's going to finish that with a head kick knockout, and it's going to be a highlight reel knockout. The other stuff that's been talked about in the news has been there's been two Bellator champions that have been talking about how they would like to match up with some UFC fighters. And the first one being Patricio Pitbull Ferreira talking about Max Holloway, how he would like to put his style on the test against Max Holloway. Now, bringing a time again where people are talking about cross promotion. As we know, Bellator is all with doing cross promotion, but we all know the UFC is not down with cross promotion, except for that Floyd Mayweather matchup. Now, the reason I see that they probably wouldn't want to do this is because the other matchup the other fighter that's been talking about this is Douglas Lima, saying that how the UFC would never want to match him up with Kamaru Usman. Now, that being two champions, because there's no win out of that. Actually, there is a win out of that. If Bellator beats the UFC champion, they can go off and say, like, look, our fighters are just as good as the UFC fighters or better. Now, that doesn't do the UFC any good, so I don't see them doing any kind of cross promotion with that. But the Max Holloway one is an interesting challenge because Max isn't actually the champion right now. Patricio is. Now, if Max beats Patricio not being the champion, that could be a big feather in the cap for the UFC. They would love it. But once again, I still don't see a promotion doing it like that with the UFC. I would think you would have to bring something huge to the table, and there would have to be an equal way of them both getting something out of both of the promotions. Now, my question is to you guys is this. Who do you guys think will win that fight? Do you think Patricio versus Max? Who would you take it? In that fight, when I look at it and think about it, as much as I know Patricio is a really good fighter, I just think the grittiness of Max would be able to push the pace and actually put on him, and I would love to see that fight. Now with Lima and Carmaro, it's a hard one because Lima hits really hard. His striking's phenomenal, and his kicks are just deadly. I'd probably lean with Lima, but I'd have to review a little bit more fights on him. But that's how I would see it right now. So with that being said, how do you guys see that fight? And would you guys want to see that type of cross promotion? Let me know in the comments. Hit me up either Facebook, TikTok, IG, Twitter, you name it. I'm on that social platform and get it out there. And with that, guys, I don't really have much else for you guys this week, but don't worry. I'll be back next week with that breakdown and also that recap of the next fight coming up, which is going to be UFC 258 Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns this Saturday night. And with that being said, guys, like always, if this is your first time, hit that subscribe button and do me a favor. Mash that like button so I can beat that YouTube algorithm and get the filthy report out there. And also click the bell. Let you know when I'm having the next episode and when the next fight talk's dropping. Now, and also remember this, guys. If nobody loves you, I love you. I am Jason Filthy Jones, bringing you the dirtiest information with the cleanest style. Peace.